Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Kirsten here, and thank you so much for joining me today. This is a brand new episode of A Better Way with Kirsten podcast. Usually on this podcast, I'm talking to you about something called TMS, which is chronic pain or other chronic sensations, symptoms in the body that are coming from your brain and heightened nervous system. But today I'm going to make an exception here and share with you something really, really freaking crazy fun that we did just a few days ago. And I hope that you find this podcast episode inspiring because maybe this is on your bucket list as well, but we're going to talk about today. And that it just brings a little bit of change to what we're talking about usually. So what we did was that we hiked the Grand Canyon and we did it from the North Rim to the South Rim. So we hiked through the whole canyon. I mean, not the whole thing. This thing is massively huge, but we did one of the trails that takes you to the bottom of the canyon and out on the other side of it. So this is a really long hike. It's really difficult. It's a lot of fun. It's super challenging. Sometimes you're thinking like, I can't take this anymore. But at the end of the day, I'm super glad that I did it. It's really, really awesome. So what I'm going to do today is give you more details about it, like how we did it, what the logistics look like, what were the hardest parts, maybe what are the really awesome parts, if there's anything that I would do differently, and so on. And let's get started. So this was when I say our, I mean me and my husband Hugh, our 5th time in the Grand Canyon. And the first time we visited Grand Canyon was in 2020. Back then we still lived in California, and that was the year, as we all know, everything got shut down. And we just had more time in our hands, and we were like, let's go and visit Arizona. And if you're in Arizona, you absolutely must go to Grand Canyon, right? You can't just not go there. So that's what we did. And it was July. It was really freaking hot. And besides, we lived in Northern California. We're not used to that type of heat back then. Now we are. Now it's like, yeah, it's nothing, whatever, right? Because it's Phoenix, it's hot all the time. But back then, we were not used to it. But we went to visit Grand Canyon in July, and it was really, really hot. And we did a short walk there, so something called the Rim Walk, I think it's called, at the south side of the canyon. So there's the south side and the north side, South Rim and North Rim. So we did a short walk on the North Rim, and this was a really easy one. I think it was maybe like 5 miles or 6 miles or something like that, and it's paved. It's relatively flat. You're not going into the canyon like we did this time. And it's very easy, really. It's even wheelchair accessible. There's a lot of tourists, so people can come and just see the canyon, see what it looks like. And I remember the first experience was amazing. It was like, oh my God, does this thing ever end? It looks so huge, so massive. And I'm telling you this right now, I get chills. I my arms are all, I get chills because I remember that first impression. And even when I was a little girl, like really little girl living in Estonia, I never thought that I could ever see this. And I remember my mom had a friend whose daughter back then lived in the States, and then this woman visited the Grand Canyon and she told us about it. And I remember thinking, wow, that would be so incredible to visit this place one day. And I don't know, manifestation, right? Maybe that's what it is. So anyways, that was 2020 that I got to visit Grand Canyon for the first time. And then 2021 we moved to Arizona, and since then we have visited the canyon for a total of 4 times. So this time that we did a couple of days ago was our 5th time. But these 4 times we had never done the rim to rim hike, which is you start from one rim, you can start from south or you can start from north, all the way to the bottom of the canyon and then coming out on the other side. We've never done this one before. What we had done before is going down the southern part for a little bit, let's say like 3-4 miles, and then coming back up. We've done it with a couple of friends for visiting or whatever, right? So we had some experience, but we have never done the full thing, the rim to rim hike. This time we did. So I want to give you a couple of facts about the canyon and the park so that you can kind of get an idea like how big this really is if you've never been there. So I think one of the really impressive facts here is that this thing is 277 miles long, which is 445 kilometers long. Like when I read that statistic, I'm like, oh my God, I just cannot even imagine it. It's so crazy, right? And it's 6,000 feet deep, which is about 1.8 kilometers deep at its deepest point. So that's what we're talking about here. It's pretty impressive, really massive. And so if you want to do the rim to rim hike, you have a couple of options. And I'm just going to share them with you just in case if anybody wants to do them. It may sound a little bit confusing, but if anybody wants to do it, I want to make sure that you have this information. So if you want to do the rim to rim hike, you basically have two trails and you can do them in both ways, right? South to north or north to south. So basically 4 different options to do it. So the option that we did was this. You start from the north rim. You start from what's called the North Kaibab Trail. You hike to the bottom of the canyon to the Bright Angel Trail, and then you go up the Bright Angel all the way to the South Rim. So the Bright Angel ends at the South Rim. This is what we did. Now the second option is do the same thing in reverse, right? So you come from the south, from the Bright Angel all the way down, and then you come up from the bottom of the canyon and you end at the North Kaibab Trail. So this was the first one. Now the second one is a harder one, and we definitely didn't want to do this as our first time doing rim to rim, which is you start from the North Kaibab, get to the bottom of the canyon and come out of the South Kaibab. So that's on the South Rim, or you can do the same thing in reverse. So like I said, what we did again was this. So we started from North Kaibab Trail at the North Rim, hiked to the bottom of the canyon where we camped one night, and then we hiked up the Bright Angel Trail all the way to the South Rim. So this is what we did. Now, this is probably the easiest of the 4 options. And when I say the easiest, I promise you that my calves are still hurting like 3 days after. So it's by no means easy. And if you're not even just a little bit trained, you probably shouldn't do this. So you have to be at least somewhat trained. You have to have experience with exercise. I lift weights 3 days a week. I do boxing and I hike regularly every weekend because I can, because I'm healthy and I love movement. Many of you know about my TMS, obviously. I'm still doing all these things, even if I get a sensation here and there, still doing all these things. So you have to be still relatively fit. You don't have to do as much as I'm doing for my fitness. For example, my husband, he doesn't really do much. He does that weekly hike with me every single week, and occasionally he goes to the gym for a little bit. But I gotta say that he's just naturally one of these really lucky people who just genetically, naturally is fit and strong person. And he's just able to do things, even if it takes him a longer time. For example, the hike took him a lot longer than me, but he was able to do it, and he's recovering totally fine. So you have to have like a certain level of fitness. If you haven't done longer hikes, train a little bit before you do it. And I also have to say that I am super grateful for doing squats and step ups and lunges every single week at the gym, because these movements were really useful when you go up this crazy hike that we just did. Okay, so we did, like I said, North Kaibab to Bright Angel, and we did it in 2 days. Day 1 was about 24 kilometers, which is about 15 miles. And this is all the way down. So you start and then you go all the way down. And the elevation change is about 1750 meters, which is about 5,740 feet. So this is how much you go down. So that's the first half. And this is really where my knees started to really feel it, because going downhill for me is harder than going uphill. So like every step you take, like you feel that impact on your knees. So it was quite a bit, and it got quite difficult at the end. And then the second day, that was day 2, we went up. It's just all the way uphill, 9.5 miles or 15.2 kilometers. And that's a total of 4,340 feet or 1322 meters. So the numbers are pretty awesome here. I wrote them down because I just wanted to give an idea like how big the elevation change really was, and the distance was pretty impressive as well. So when we arrived at the Grand Canyon on Tuesday, I'm going to share with you a little bit of like the logistics now. We arrived at the South Rim because this is closer to Phoenix, right? So we came from Phoenix, we parked our car at the South Rim, and then our friend picked us up so we all could drive together to the North Rim. Because as you remember, we ended our hike at the south. So now we had one car waiting there, right? So that was the point. And if you don't have this option of using 2 vehicles, you can also book a shuttle. So there are shuttles that go back and forth between the North and South Rim. You can book that. I think it's about $90 per person or something like that. But you really, of course, have to watch the times. With cars, your own car, you have a lot more freedom as far as like when you start and when you drive and all that. But a lot of people use the shuttle, so that's totally an option. So I got there on Tuesday, the South Rim. Our friend picked us up. We drove up to the north, and then the next day we were a little bit late with our start of the hike. So we still had, about 1.5 hours drive to the trailhead from where we stayed, and then we still went to go have breakfast, and then we got everything ready. And there's some things that we decided we had to take out of our bags because the bags were getting too heavy. And on this trip you really want to make sure that you don't bring too much, because as you can imagine, it is a pretty intense trip. So every pound in your backpack, it really matters, and you start to feel it. So it took us a little bit of time to get going. And like I said, we also had breakfast, which I want to tell you, it was an awesome place. Even if you just visit the North Rim, go and check out this place. It's the North Rim Lodge, and they have this beautiful breakfast. You can have lunch and dinner there too, but it's absolutely gorgeous. Like, you go into this restaurant, and the windows are huge, and they're just like overlooking the northern part of the canyon, which is so, like, I can't tell you how beautiful it is. It's just so nice. To just sit there and drink your coffee, and it's like such a beautiful experience. So we had our breakfast, and then we headed out to the trailhead. We still like switched things around our bags. So the general recommendation is that when you stay overnight, right, you have to bring your tent, you have to bring your sleeping bag and like more stuff, right? Then the general recommendation is that your backpack doesn't weigh more than about 20% of your body weight. So I weighed my bag. I was like, okay, I'm good, because 20% of my body weight would have been, I think, 30 pounds, and my bag was 25. So I was like, okay, yes, this is good. I can carry this. And so on Wednesday morning, then we hit the trail, and we got started, and we started at 10 a.m. And let me tell you, a lot of people by that time have been on the trail for 5 hours already. Most people start really, really early, but we're such rookies. Like I said, we had a long drive from the place we stayed the night, and we had breakfast, and we took our time. So we got started at 10, and it was so funny. We read some rangers' recommendations about the trail, and the rangers said that we don't recommend hiking between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And we're like, all right, that's exactly what we are doing. Like, first timers, we started at 10, and we probably won't be done until 4. And we were not. It actually took us longer. So of course this recommendation is so that you don't get the hottest time of the day, but it is what it is. That's how it worked out. And before we even started our trail, we met a woman there who told us that she had that morning at 1:15 a.m. started from the South Rim. So she had already done the entire 25 miles, 24 something miles to the North Rim this morning. So she started 1:15 a.m. It was now 10 a.m. She had already done that. And people who do that are just like in amazing shape. A lot of people, I mean, not people, but the park generally doesn't recommend that. But of course, people don't listen, and I think that's fine. I mean, if you're safe and secure in your own fitness level, do it, right? That's fine. But I think, sometimes they're concerned that people won't do it, won't be able to do it, or will get a heat stroke or whatever. But this woman, she had done it, right? And not only that, because she was also heading back, like when we were headed to the first part of our hike. So she had already come from south to north, and she was now going back from north to south. So that means that she was doing 48 miles and just, without breaks. I mean, of course, I'm sure that she had short breaks, but without spending night anywhere, without going, have lunch anywhere. She just did it. And we're like, really? Like, I could not believe this, because like I said, you meet a lot of people on trail who do this in one day, and they're just super athletes. They're like regular marathon runners. None of the three of us, by the way, is not a marathon runner. So people are like that, but I never talked to anybody else who has done the whole thing, and that's called rim to rim to rim in just one day. Incredible. So we get started, and it was a lot of downhill at first. And I remember the first thought I had was like, Okay, I should have brought long sleeved white shirts because the sun was out a lot and you don't want to get burned, right? But I didn't know how much shade there's gonna be, so I was wearing like a t-shirt, but I was wondering it would have been nice to have like long sleeved and white so they don't get overly hot. But actually, it wasn't too bad. So the first day, there was quite a bit of shade too, because a lot of the time you move like right along the canyon wall, so very close to the canyon wall, which then provides shade. So I would say maybe like 1/4 of the time it was open and sunny, and the rest of the time it was pretty covered. It's of course warm. It's Arizona. It's the Grand Canyon, and the thing about the canyon is that you would think, or at least my logic would have thought, that when you go to the bottom it gets colder, but it's not true because the canyon walls actually keep the heat in. So what's actually true is that the lower you go, the warmer it gets. So the temperature actually goes up when you get lower. So that was one interesting thing. And for a moment, we're even thinking if we are going to bring the sleeping bag, because I guess it's going to get super hot at night, but it didn't. So it was a good idea to bring the sleeping bag. Anyway, so we hiked down, and about, I think it was maybe about like 2 miles in, there was a first water stop. And there you fill your bottle. So there are water stops along the way. And then the next one wasn't until like another 5 miles away. So you really wanted to make sure that you have enough water. We carried some really awesome water bottles that we bought from REI. So they are collapsible plastic bottles. So not the regular plastic bottle that you buy from the store, but it goes like super small. It basically looks like it's a little plastic bag when it's empty, and then you fill it with water. So it also means that you don't have that extra weight from the bottle. So you don't want to carry your regular water bottle because everything is weight, right? Every gram, every ounce in your backpack literally matters. So we really loved those collapsible water bottles that we had. So we filled those up, and I was kind of cautious. I was careful. That was my biggest fear, that what if we run out of water? That's the worst thing that could happen, right? But it never happened. So I always had like extra in my bag, and I wasn't even close to running out because like I said, they're pretty good at putting those rest areas there, and there's water in most of them. Now, if you want to do the hardest version of rim to rim hike, which is the South Kaibab to the north, and the South Kaibab part doesn't have water stops. So that's insane. And I probably would never do that. But if you do the North Kaibab and the Bright Angel, there's plenty of water stops, so you really don't have to worry about it. And you can, of course, also print out a map before that shows you where the water stops are. And you can also, before starting the hike, make sure, go ask the information point, like if all the water points are functioning. We did that, and they said everything is fine. So we knew that we don't have to carry like a ton of extra weight in our bags. So there were those water stops, there were rest areas, and then there's also a couple of areas where you can make food. So we had brought like a little camping, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a camping stove, I guess. Yeah, it's really small. It doesn't weigh a lot, but it's very convenient. And we had some freeze-dried foods that are meant for campers, and so it was very easy. You just had to boil some water and then pour this water, mix it with the freeze-dried food. Of course, don't think that this is going to be like some sort of super healthy, hyper vitamin rich food, right? If this is what you want from this long hiking trip, then that's not what you're gonna get, unless you want to carry like fresh fruit and fresh everything in your backpack, which nobody wants. But these freeze-dried foods were absolutely amazing, really, really good options. So you just boil some water, you open the bag right where the food is, where the freeze-dried food is, and you pour the hot water inside, you mix the whole thing, let it sit for a little bit, and you just eat it outside of this package. I wish I could remember what this brand was that we used. I could tell you, if I find it, I put it in the show notes. But it was really good. So we sat down for lunch for a little bit, made our meals, and then kept hiking. And it was a really long hike, I gotta say, because like I said, it was a total of about 24 kilometers, 15 miles, and then about 5 miles before the end, you can also go to a point that's called the Ribbon Falls. So the Ribbon Falls is like a little detour. It adds like close to a mile to your trip, and it's basically a waterfall that's coming down like really high. and it's beautiful. It's really great. So we decided we're going to do that as well, even though our legs by mile 10 were pretty tired. Like I said, there's like you're just like stepping down the whole time. You're going downhill, and sometimes the downhill is like it's like smooth downhill, but a lot of the times it's like steps and steps and steps. So you feel like every time you step down, like a chair, not just chair, but chair stair step, then it feels like a lot of impact on the knees. So by the time we got to that Ribbon Falls, my legs were already pretty tired and my quads were quite sore. And I felt like the parts like around my ankle that you need to really stabilize your foot every time you step down that little step, this part started to get really, really sore. And we still decided that we're going to do the Ribbon Falls because a lot of people recommended that it is worth it to do that little detour. So we did that little detour. That also required going through a little, I don't know if I'd call it a river. It wasn't really a river, but like a stream, bigger than a stream, smaller than a river. So you had to go through that. And of course, you just stepped in there because there's no way you can just cross it without getting your feet wet. We had good waterproof shoes. Of course, they were not entirely waterproof, but they're pretty good. So we walked to the Ribbon Falls, checked that out, took some photos, hung out, and got back on the trail. And then we started to get a little bit kind of pressed for time because we were going to also have dinner at Phantom Ranch. So Phantom Ranch is a place at the bottom of the canyon. It's very close to where you stay if you stay the night there at the Bright Angel campground. So Phantom Ranch is a place that also provides dinner. So if you want to eat your dinner at the bottom of the canyon, like actual, like a home cooked meal, instead of eating like snacks all day long, then you can do it. And this is something that you also have to book ahead of time. So there are two options, and which dinner you get. So it's not like a la carte, which is understandable. Like you cannot expect a place that's located at the bottom of this massive canyon to have like 15 food options and everything to be made like fresh. So what they had like two options. You could have like steak dinner, which was 5:30. If you want your steak dinner, show up 5:30. Or if you want to have like a beef stew dinner, then you gotta show up 6:30. And there's a vegetarian option too. So we had decided we're gonna do the stew dinner, and we had to be there by 6:30. And we realized after we left the Ribbon Falls that we're getting really tight here with time, and we just had to go faster. Because they said that if you're late, then you're late, and sorry, we can't, give you your food. But we were obviously hungry after hiking so long and just eating like, some simple things. So we got there. So Hugh and I, we were a little bit faster, so we got there just 6:30 or 6:20 maybe. And this meal was really, really great. And our friend was a little bit behind us. And we were really thinking, okay, if he's not going to make it here by 6:30, maybe we can get like a little takeout, or maybe can get like a little container, ask the chef to give us a little extra so he can get his meal that he had already paid for. But luckily he made it there too, and so we all got to enjoy this dinner, and it was so good. Like if you ever want to do this hike, I really recommend that you have dinner at Phantom Ranch. Super delicious, super nice, like really delicious beef stew with some really great ingredients. They had some fresh salad, they had excellent bread. It was kind of like cornbread, but it wasn't cornbread. I don't know, it's like some sort of sweet bread. It's very good. And then they also had brownies, which is my favorite treat. So we had the dinner there. It was just so good. I'm so glad that we had the dinner there. And I was like, I loved everything about this meal because I love beef stews, I love vegetables, I love brownies. I'm like, this was like dream food after like hiking 15 miles and feeling like your legs are gonna fall off. And literally that's how it felt, because by the end of this first day, we just like sitting down in a chair to eat our meal, or like standing up after a meal and then pitching the tent, all that, it was just so difficult. The body was in so much pain. So yeah, we had the dinner, and it was also so funny at dinner too. It's kind of like family style. So there are three long tables there. Each table probably fits like, I don't know, like 12, maybe 16 people. And so we're sitting at the table, and I see this woman. I'm like, I think I kind of know her, but I have no idea where or who she might be, or I don't know. And I keep looking. I think I know her, but again, I couldn't figure out who that was. And then this woman asked me like, hey, are you Kirsten? And I'm like, yes, I am. and how do you know me? And then she's like, oh, you trained my daughter at this gym, so in California. And I was like, yes, I know her. So we started talking, and it was so fun to just like randomly see a person that you haven't seen in, I think, 5 years now. So yeah, I used to, when I was personal trainer at the gym, I trained her daughter. So this is such a fun thing. Anyways, so we had our dinner, and then we headed to the campsite, which was very close. But by 7:30, when we had finished our dinner, it was pitch black out. I mean, of course, the stars. The stars are amazing. They're so bright. There's so many. You could never see this in any city. Uh, it was just incredible. So stars were the only source of light, and of course our headlights too, headlamps too. And so we got to the campground. We put our tents up, and we found a river there. So there's this little river, very cold water, and it was amazing. So we just went there. It was literally like 5 steps from our campsite, and we just stuck our feet in, and it was like the best thing ever. Um, you might know that for a while I was super into cold plunges. I did ice baths all the time, and this is almost like what it was. And it was so good because our legs were so tired. Like I said, our feet, and then the around the ankles, all this was like just like really sore. So we are just sitting there, our feet in the river, and just looked up into the sky and the stars, and it was so amazing. And the level of exhaustion in our bodies was just like a lot. It was a lot. So, and then we were ready to go to sleep, and we were out. Like last time I checked my watch, it was like 8:45, and I was out. I was like super tired, and then I started waking up like around 4, and then was like on and off until 6 when the guys got up too. And then we had breakfast. We made the same freeze dried meal, and we had like a little bit of tea, and then we just headed out. So this was our second day now. Also, before leaving the campground, we had a really cute deer there visiting. They're just so not afraid of people at all. They just walk right up to you, and they just chew on the tree leaves right on your campsite, and then just look at you in the eye, and they're not afraid of anything. So we saw quite a few of these guys. It was really cute. So we started our second day, and we knew that day 2 is going to be all uphill basically. So now we were headed to the Bright Angel Trail, right? So that we can get all the way up to the South Rim. And the beginning was like super beautiful. It was so gorgeous. So about a mile from the Bright Angel campground where we stayed the night, about a mile in, we crossed the Colorado River. There's a bridge there, and this river is really big. It's like very fast. And there was a point that's like a little, almost like a little bit of like a lagoon there. Lagoon there, yeah, lagoon. That's how you say it. And it's fast as like sand, and it's like a quieter spot. So this is not where the water flows like super super fast. So we got in there, and this was the best decision ever. So I think we sat there for maybe about an hour even, went swimming and came out, and then, had like a couple blisters, took care of these. Overall, I actually didn't get like bad blisters at all. I got like one on my toe, and then I found later one on my hand from using the hiking poles, which I very much recommend for this type of hiking poles. And we just like hung out there at the river, but this was still maybe like an hour into our hike, I would say. And this is so nice to cool off. And then we took off to the rest of the trail, and then the next stop was Havasupai Garden, which is another rest point there. And this is where the guys had lunch, and I just had some snacks. I didn't feel like eating real lunch. Like what I missed really was something salty. Next time I know to bring more salty things, because I had a lot of like dried fruit with me. I had some nuts, like trail mix with a little bit of like chocolate and almonds and cranberries and stuff like that. And I had my electrolyte drinks, Element, which is so good, and I don't know how I would have done it without it. But next time I know to bring more salty things like crackers, or like those peanut butter filled pretzels and jerky, and even plain salt. These are things that I would bring next time, in addition to the sweet stuff that I had. So, and then after meeting up, I was a little bit faster. Like I said, I met up with the guys that have a by garden, and then after that I told them that I'm probably going to just take off on my own, and they were like, yeah, cool. and then I decided I'm going to wait for them at the top. So the rest of the hike, I just did everything all by myself. And of course, you see people on the trail too, other people. Some people are like freaking super athletes. They just go past you like you're nothing. And then you hear, you talk to people, they're like, yeah, we started this morning. I'm like, oh my goodness, where do you have this energy? And then sometimes you pass some people, and sometimes there's mules. Mules are pretty common on the trail too, but they're more like on the upper parts of the trail. I didn't see them at the bottom, although I know that they are there too. And then you just hike, and then at some point it becomes a true willpower test. It's like, okay, I got no other choice but just keep going, keep going, keep going, and you go. And this part of the trail, the second day, was a lot more open. There was a lot less shade. And at some point, I think it was in House Bike Garden, I checked the weather or the temperature. They had like thermometer there. It showed, I think, 105 degrees. So it wasn't a chilly day exactly. And then, yeah, like I said, a lot of it was open. And it was hot. And I stopped a lot. So what's really good about the Bright Angel part of the trail, which we now are, right, day 2, they have water stops almost every 1.5 miles. Super convenient because, like I said, every gram, every ounce in your backpack matters, and you don't want to carry extra. And at the end of the day, I still carried extra because I was like so crazy about like I don't want to run out of water. So I was like extra cautious, extra careful about that. But yeah, so we filled up. I drank a lot of electrolyte drinks and just kept going. And the trail has the uphill, especially, it has a lot of switchbacks. So you go a little bit, uphill like one way, and then it suddenly turns and you go that way, and it suddenly turns. It's like zigzag, zigzag, zigzag at the end of the trail. And so that's of course really tiring. And then it's, sometimes it's just like thinking, okay, one step, two steps, one step, two steps. You just like like that in your head, because you know that, okay, what else I'm gonna do? Like I'm committed to this thing, and I'm gonna do this thing, and I gotta get to the top. But I will say that towards the end, like, it was very often that I just stopped. I leaned like on my hiking poles. I just breathed. I just, got my energy back together. What helped me sometimes was like, even though I wasn't really hungry, I think the heat definitely, messes with your hunger a little bit too. You don't always feel it, but you know that you should eat. So what happened to me was like, I wasn't necessarily hungry, but I craved energy. It's this interesting feeling, right? You don't have like this stomach growling. I don't think I ever got this on this hike. Afterwards, yes. But during the hike, you don't get that hunger feeling, but you get the feeling of energy. I need energy. So then in these cases, I would eat like a couple of like dried mangoes, like piece of mangoes or apricots or something like that. And I just immediately felt better. We also had these gummies that are like energy gummies, high sugar gummies that also help to boost your energy. And by the way, on a hike like this, sugar is your friend. Like if there's anybody's like, oh, I don't want to eat sugar, sugar is bad. Well, I think, in your everyday life, do whatever you want. But on this hike, your body wants carbohydrates. Your body wants sugar. And even though I don't talk about like diet and stuff here a whole lot anymore, like I have like a lot of episodes where I talked about it. But if there's anybody who is attempting to do this on a keto diet or like no carb diet, good luck, because I don't know how you're going to survive this. Carbohydrates are super important on this type of hike. And sweet, like I said, like dried fruit, other sweet things, raisins would be great, or cranberries, stuff like that. So every now and then I would have like a couple pieces of that, and I would just continue. And then I would say the last maybe like 3 miles or so were pretty difficult, but I made it to the top. And when I made it to the top, I together with the swimming break, which was about an hour, it had taken me like 6 hours and 40 minutes, I think. So if you take an hour off, it's like, let's say approximately 6 hours that it took me to hike that up. The first day we were on the trail for 8 hours and 20 minutes. Forgot to mention that. So yeah, it was pretty awesome. Also the steps, the first day we took about 37,000 steps, and then the second day about 31,000 steps. So, and like I said, the first day hike was like 8 hours, 20 minutes, but that had a lot more breaks. And the second day was about 6 hours. So I got to the top. I was so tired. I don't know. It's this feeling like you would think like, okay, if you finish something so hard, all this elevation gain, all this climbing, all this heat, that when you get to the top, you're like so happy and so like insanely excited for having finished this, or feeling these huge emotions of like gratitude and all that, or like winning something. It's kind of like, I don't know, you feel like you're on top of the world. But honestly, I didn't have that, because what I had was relief. This is over now. This was the first feeling that I had. I'm like, oh, I made it. Thank God I can sit down now. It wasn't like this, like, oh, I did this super cool thing, and like, and I'm the queen of the world. It wasn't like that. It was just, thank God it's over. And then, uh, you're just so depleted. Your body's just so depleted. You can't just like think about a whole lot of things. And then I sat down to wait for Hugh and our friend, and then I just had a little more time to think about it. And then a couple of hours later, then you start to feel like, oh, that was freaking awesome. And now a couple of days later, you're like, oh yeah, this was really awesome. But it wasn't like instant. Like the second I finished the hike, I was like, oh, I'm the queen of the world. It wasn't like that. It was like, oh, it's over. It's good. So when I was waiting there at the top, when I was waiting for the guys to finish their trail too, it was actually really cool, because there's a lot of people waiting for their friends or family members, and a lot of people, of course, coming from the same trail, finishing as well. It's so cool to see like all kinds of different people, hear their stories, see people like cheering for each other. Like, when you see at the top, when your friends are getting close, like people are like clapping their hands and like waving and just getting all excited. And then you hear like people sharing their experiences, like what is the hardest part and how much, what they ate. And I don't know, it's just like a really cool thing, like to experience. And so I waited actually for quite some time. The guys got there a little bit over 2 hours after me. So by that time, I had a lot of time to hang out with other people and talk. And I even stretched my hamstrings and calves a little bit, which was definitely a good decision. Which doesn't mean that the next day I wasn't hurting. I was really hurting. Still a lot of pain. But then the guy showed up too, and then we headed out to our car and went to eat. Of course, had a lot of spaghetti and good stuff, because again, carbohydrates. By the way, also before the hike, like the day before, I highly recommend that you have a very high carbohydrate day. Eat your rice, eat your pasta, eat your bread, that type of stuff, because you need that energy on the trail. And then bring high carbohydrate foods to the trail too, because carbs are really the first source of energy for you. So if you do something that crazy, you gotta make sure that you have enough carbs to do the thing. So, and then we headed out to dinner. We had our dinner, and remember, now we're on the south side of the canyon, right? And so we still had to drive all the way up to north to pick up our car where we had left it. So we drove there, and then we realized that even though we had planned to drive back home to Phoenix that same day, that was just not going to happen, because that would have meant that we got home like 3 a.m. and driving when you're so exhausted would have been a really bad idea. So we decided to stay the night there at the north side of the canyon, and then drove back the next day. Our friend left. He lives in a different state, and then we actually went back to that North Rim Lodge for lunch, because like I said, it's such a gorgeous place. That's the place where we had breakfast before. We just wanted to see the place again, enjoy it again. Oh my goodness. And definitely, if you ever go there, have their carrot cake. It was so delicious. So that was it. And then actually some other things that I remembered, there's a lot of wildlife, of course. So that nighttime when we went to pick up our car, so many deer on the road, so many, and also cows and bisons. So you have to really keep an eye out for that, because these guys like to hang out at night, and especially bisons, they're like big and black, and you don't see them until the very last minute. So that was when we were in our friend's car going to drive and pick up our car. It was really getting late the day, the same day of the hike, the second day when we went to pick up the car. And it was Some moments were like we had to slow down so much because you don't want to hit the deer or let alone the bison. So that was something we both, even though we were so exhausted, we really had to like be super alert so that nothing bad happens there. So this is about the hike, and I also thought I would share with you some like practical tips, like some of the things that about like clothes or camping gear or some other things that I thought would be good for you to know if you're ever attempting a long hike, whether it is this one or something else. So one thing, food, right? So I mentioned a couple of things already. Definitely a good idea to bring dried fruit. Definitely a good idea to bring like higher calorie foods such as nuts and trail mix, um, and those freeze dried foods as well, like camping foods, hiking foods. Super convenient, but you have to have a camping stove so you can make yourself hot water. So that's definitely one thing. Um, and then what was so helpful for me, like I mentioned, Element electrolytes. It's spelled LMNT. I drink it actually every day. That's the only thing that I drink also when I'm at the gym. But on this hike, I drank it all the time, like all the time, because it has salt in it and it really helps me. So electrolytes is so important. Like don't go on a long hike if you don't have electrolytes with me. That's definitely my recommendation. And like I said, I wish I had brought a little bit more like salty snacks because you start to crave salt. And even now, today, as I'm recording this, it's Sunday. Our hike was Wednesday, Thursday. Like even this morning, I still woke up with like I need sugar and I need salt. Like it's a strong craving, so it means like the body is still trying to recover and trying to replenish and get the stuff that it really needs. So I just ate before this podcast. I ate those peanut butter filled pretzels. They're so delicious. Very easy to overeat, but I was like, whatever. My body needs a lot of energy still. And then these are the main things about food that I would say. And then the day before, definitely eat your carbohydrates, like I said. Now let's talk about clothes then. Like I said, I would definitely bring, at least like this time of the year when it's still hot, so like a long sleeved white shirt because that doesn't get as hot. At first I had a, yes, long sleeve, but it was black shirt. It got really hot, so I switched to t-shirt, but like a short sleeves, but white and long sleeve would have been really good. Now, one thing that I want to say to my ladies, if women are listening, so if you are wearing shorts and if you have thicker thighs, such as I do, like make sure that your shorts are not too short so that your thighs don't start rubbing and like chafing like crazy, because that happened to me, and by the end of the second day it got like pretty painful. So I was like, yes, these shorts are a little too short, but luckily what I had brought for the second day were longer shorts, so that didn't happen. But it's one of these things you would never think. I would never think, because I'm like, yeah, it's warm water, sorry, it's warm weather. I'm gonna wear small clothes as small as I can. But yes, the shorts can be too short. Like if you're super skinny legs, probably not a problem, but for me it was a problem. And then when you wear shorts, like I recommend that you wear something with pockets, like those side pockets, because if you want to take pictures and you have to have your phone in the backpack, so you don't have to take the phone like in and out, and you have to take the backpack off your back and then take your phone out, take a picture, put it back, and like it's just too much time. So just wear something with pockets where you can take your phone out easily if you want to take pictures. Then obviously you want to have good hiking boots. I love my Columbias. I'm a big fan of those. Really nice. Then bathing suits. So if you want to do the same hike, and if you hike all the way down to the Colorado River, go swim in this little place, this lagoon. You'll find it. The trail goes right there. There's also like this little stop and a toilet, like a little building there. You find it. It's such a good place. And like I said, the water is a little bit more still there, so you don't have to worry about being pulled away with the river water. Go there, like you have to. If you do this and you skip that Colorado River dip, then I think you miss a big part of it. So bathing suit, bring that. Then towel. Like at first we had thought, we're gonna bring like each like a big towel, and later we're like, no, we're not gonna bring a big towel each. So we just shared, you and I, we shared like one small towel, and that's literally all you need. Then we also had bandanas, which was super helpful, like this little, what a bandana is, right? So you can wrap it around your neck so you don't get like sunburned on your neck. Also, it's super helpful is in these water stops that were along the way. It's very good idea to wet that bandana and then wrap it around your neck. I also totally soaked my t-shirt. I took it off and then I just make it all wet with cold water and put it back on, because that was a really good way to stay cool. I did also the same thing with my hat too. So until the next point where you know your clothes are already dry, but then you do it again. It's such a good thing to cool off your body. You're gonna need it on a hot day like this that we had. Definitely bring your hat, like I said, and yeah, I think that's all that I had for the clothes. And then of course, yeah, like good socks that are a little bit longer. Those are also helpful. And then some other things that I have here, absolutely hiking poles, really super useful, helpful. Did see some people without poles, but most people did use hiking poles. I didn't have them before. I bought them for this trip specifically, and I'm very glad that I did. They helped a lot, especially both ways actually. But like coming down, they take some of the pressure off your knees when you can use your arms too. And going uphill, again, you can use a little extra power from your arms if you have the poles. Hugh only used one pole. He said it's totally fine. I prefer to have two. And I actually have a little blister on my finger too from hiking poles, but that's literally it. Like one on my toe, one on my finger. I think that's pretty good considering that it was a total of 25 miles. What else would I say? First aid kit. What did we have there? We had some band-aids. We had a little bit of rubbing alcohol just in case, and we had some painkillers. So I think my friend, he took a couple of painkillers because his legs were really hurting. Uh, I took one like at the end, so we are already finished both days, and then we got in a car, and I think it was still dehydration, even though I was drinking a lot. I took one painkiller because I felt like my head was hurting, but it's good to have painkillers in your first aid kit. And then the really good water bottles that I mentioned that are collapsible plastic water bottles. I don't know how to pronounce this thing. It's spelled Platypus. Really great water bottles. Highly recommend, because they also, like, even when you fill it with water, it's kind of flat, so it's so easy to put it in your backpack. It doesn't take up a lot of space, and literally the only weight that it adds is the water weight. The bottle itself weighs almost nothing because it's all plastic. So these were the things that we had with us. And I was thinking about, like, if I had any like specific thoughts or like something going on. I gotta say that it was really cool, the hike, in that my mind tends to be very racing, and that's part of the reason why I dealt